When you think of Somalia, what's the first image that springs to mind? Maybe it's guns and fighting. Maybe it's drought, famine, displacement. Maybe it's friends, family getting together to have a gossip about what the neighbours are up to, discuss the price of bati, or, as we can see here, to listen to the radio. And Somalians, like Kenyans, are very, very avid radio listeners. And back in the 90s, in the height of the conflict in Somalia, at 5 p.m. and 9 p.m. every day for about half an hour, suddenly everything would go quiet. The streets was empty. Fighters would even put down their weapons. Why? Because they were listening to the radio. They were listening to BBC Somali programs about the conflict, the latest news reports. Radio is a critical information point for millions of people, and the World Service still has a global reach and a loyal audience, in particular the Somali service, which reaches many millions. But of course, radio isn't just important for news. It also has a really important role that it can play in humanitarian emergencies. And over the past couple of decades, the BBC has delivered lifeline programming to many different countries across the world, sometimes in response to conflicts, such as in Gaza, Iraq, sometimes in response to natural disasters, such as in Haiti. And in Somalia, the BBC has responded to various different crises over the years. In the 1990s, we partnered with the ICRC to broadcast a missing persons series, which is still running today, and also a drama which raised topics around humanitarian values in times of conflict. In 2009, we broadcast weekly programs in response to an upsurge in violence, and the programs addressed issues such as health and safety, education, nutrition, rights, and migration. And in 2011, the Somali service launched a daily program which was to help listeners cope with the effects of drought and famine. Every time we have done this, we have done it in collaboration and consultation with technical experts, experts from the humanitarian sector, and as our colleague from Internews was saying before, it really is critical when we do these kind of responses that we're joined up, that we're talking to the right people, that we're talking to the people who know what's happening on the ground to get our information. And I think there are sometimes challenges around the perception that maybe humanitarian responders will have about the media, which is why it's very important that we build these relationships and trust, so that when we're looking for this critical lifeline information, the humanitarian sector also understands that they can provide us with that really practical information about where people can get food aid, what to do if your child's suffering from trauma, how to make your water safe to drink. So that I think there's work to do, and there's more dialogue to happen between media and the humanitarian sector, so that we're more comfortable with each other and we understand each other's areas of work and what kind of information that the media would need to broadcast this Lifeline emergency program. Radio has particular characteristics that make it a really effective form of communication in a crisis. It's immediate. It can reach people straight after an event has happened, often before aid can get there, and it can adapt to situations as they're changing rapidly, such as conflicts or cyclones. Radio is wide-reaching. It can deliver factual humanitarian information to millions of people at a time, and it can also help avoid the distorted messages that sometimes come from mouth-to-mouth communication. And also it can reach areas where humanitarian aid can't always reach, as is quite often the case in Somalia. And radio is portable. You can access it without mains electricity if you've got batteries, if you've got solar power, and often displaced people choose radios as one of the few things that they'll carry with them when they have to leave. Radio can also be therapeutic. It can serve as a kind of psychosocial support for people who've been affected by crisis. It can promote hope, it can promote connections, and it can promote a sense of empowerment and ability to take control of the situation and do the best you can to get out of it. And radio is accessible. It can meet the needs of low literacy groups, and it can also be tailored to different kinds of vulnerable groups, such as women and children. And radio can also be private. It's a means through which you can get across sensitive information such as gender-based issues, sexual violence. With headphones, you have a heightened sense of privacy, and it creates a more personal exchange between the radio and the listener. And radio is public. In Somalia, people often gather in groups, especially under trees like this, to listen to programs, and that prompts debate and discussion about the kinds of issues that are raised in the programs. And radio is interactive. It supports two-way communication with affected populations, and it can provide a platform for those people who are most affected to voice their needs, explain what's happening, suggest also ways of coping to other people who are suffering the same thing. So in conclusion, the use of radio and mobile technology is something that we think is really, really important in humanitarian response, and we're looking for ways to join with you, whether you're humanitarian or technology experts, so that we can join forces and synergize to have a more positive outcome for people in crisis.